Wow, what an epic 3 days we had there in Gdynia. Everybody was there, except for me and Chris Parker. But yeah, I was enjoying watching the last weekend. It was really cool to see. I was in Balaton the year before, so it's kind of interesting, a comparison. Been watching some other SUP races, such as the Euro SUP up in Denmark, just the weekend before. So really interesting little perspective I was able to gain. But one by one, we're gonna walk through the last week, and one by one, you guys are also gonna click a nice like button, help me support my video, help me with my channel and everything. So who knows, maybe I can be there again. But anyways, sprint races, the 2 sprint finals were really cool to watch. I mean, how awesome, like starting with the man. I mean, like Connor was just flying. I mean, his board was almost planing. So I'm super stoked for him to see that he booked the world title there. Very well deserved. He missed out on world titles last year. So very, very stoked. And the same thing with April. April was a little tighter there. April Zilk, not that clear, but boy, these girls can paddle. These girls can paddle. And that was really cool to see. From a spectator point of view, of course, now we can start discussing and looking back at the sprint races from last weekend or the weekend before at the Euro SUP, where it was all beach starts and buoy turns. So you guys as spectators need to decide what is more exciting, lane racing out of the water or beach starts with a buoy turn over 200 meters. I leave that one open. And then, of course, then we had the big one. The big one was the long distance race. I mean, that was some crazy, crazy racing there. Me, myself, always 12 hours in the past, so to speak, waking up in the morning, going through the result sheets, and they're like, wait, what was going on? DNF did not finish, did not start. I'm like, with something, what was going on there? And walking out in the living room, getting my coffee and looking at the live cast, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I know what happened. The conditions were so crazy. The conditions were actually that crazy. I mean, for certain paddlers, mind you, that this video, this topic deserves its own video. So I have up here or up there, here on one of these sides, I put a link to that video because that race deserves its own closer look. The pros, of course, did really well. Congratulations to Michael Booth there for winning. I was stoked for him. That was just a crazy, crazy race, and not everybody was happy with it. Not everybody was stoked with it. So, big philosophical question there. Who are we catering these SUP World Championships to? Is it a flat water race? Everybody can go, from pro down to mom and pop paddlers. Or are we keeping it an ocean paddle race and we are dealing with different conditions? We remember the conditions also, for example, at the ice race in Thun, that was a lake race down the lake of Thun, but hey, that was sure some choppy water there. So choppiness is something. Are we going to deal with choppiness or not going to deal with choppiness? I think that whole long distance race created that discussion once again. It created some chaos amongst the participants. I had some news from some participants that I was talking to, and again, not everybody was happy there. Definitely not the same caliber from last year. And then the technical race, guys. I mean, the finals couldn't be cooler like that it was. Like starting with the man again. I mean, like Connor with his kangaroo start there, making it out to the buoys always so quick, but not as the first there in the men's sprint finally. It was definitely Claudio Nica there. So it was such a cool race, changing the leads. And then what happened there at buoy number 2? I mean, Claudio is falling down and falling into Noik and grabbing the board along the way or trying to catch himself, or who knows what he was doing there. But I think that was definitely, yes, it was a DQ. You cannot fall and take somebody else down with you, particularly not when you're like, all there is on the other person's board is your hand. I think that's a no-go. And that, of course, then Connor pulled away. The field behind was coming up. And then the sprint. I mean, like, how cool was that? The Connor taking that wider turn. T2 opening up for T2 there, going down the sprint. And these two guys are hammering it out. And then Connor goes like, no, no, no. this is my win, and jumping off the board quite a bit before T2 and just going down the beach, running sprint or up the beach. I mean, super cool sprint there up the beach. Congratulations, Connor. And then with the women, of course, another great final. Lead changes there. April Silk, the hopeful for a title there, dominating the first half of the race, and then somewhat falling behind, falling apart in the second half, and then leaving the door open for the new name on the block for the last few weeks is definitely Melanie Lefenêtre, like booking it there in front of Duna Gordillo, another great name that is so successfully coming up the last few races. And then that sprint at the end was so unfortunate. Duna making that last push to maybe grab the podium, grab the number one, and she kind of caught an edge on her board there and fell, and opening up the second place for Caroline Künzel, another great young athlete from Denmark, making a name for herself just this weekend and the weekend before in Denmark. So good for her, super stoked. So that was such great racing. I was definitely excited to see all the pros and all the opens. And also, like the venue, I think it was a really nice venue. They had the harbor there and the beach on the side, so it made for an overall great venue. It's easy for logistics. I think the commentary was great. The TV production was cool. I like when you have those little animations and you have the results coming in right away. So good job on the TV production there. I think for me as a spectator, again, there's another video we can talk about. My wife still thought he was kind of a yawner. My kids were stoked to watch because, hey, Connor was paddling, you know. My kids know Connor. We know Connor here from Maui. So, whoops, now we have a reason to watch. And that's now the kids liking it. And that goes into another video that I made about the whole thing of the spectator friendliness. And on that note, shout out to Connor on that one. 15 years in the sport, being one of the first in the sport, and still 15 years later booking world titles. I mean, kids like Donato Friends was 2 years old when Connor first started racing. Girls from Spain, they were just little when Connor started racing, and here it is, Connor's still there. He's like, I'd say a few more years and Connor be like the Kelly Slater of SUP, because he's now paddling against another generation of paddlers, and it is really cool to see that exists in our sport as well. And we have now a new generation and an older generation. So how cool is that? And of course, we have so many new names now that I have to pay attention to. I mean, like from the juniors, I'm like, how is this Cecilia Pampinella? I mean, win. Wherever she paddles, she wins. It's so great to see all the Spanish ones, Duna Cordillos from France, Melanie Lefenêtre, all these new names that are coming up and that are so strong. And it is so cool to see how everything is growing and how everything is drawing in new names. There's still so much more to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video or in the next race.